Alrighty. So for this week 5, you're going to have some new content for me related to your standard instructional video. And you probably have noticed, and I've said something I'm sure, is that the weekly stuff, because I've taught this a couple of times, can be from another semester. So this one is actually more current for you. And so the most important reason for me was that I'm switching in this case because we're moving on to our next major topic, which we've covered HTML, we've covered CSS. Now it's time to cover Bootstrap. And Bootstrap is one of those, like, you just need to learn it. As you move on, and some of you may already will take CIT85. This is where you're going to learn how to create HTML and CSS from scratch. But part of the learning process, we feel it's important, and I've confirmed this by talking to people in the industry, is actually to learn Bootstrap, which is a way to make the process of creating websites, responsive designs, much easier. As a matter of fact, I was looking the other day, and I'm not going to make you watch this, but one of my new folks I'm watching a lot on YouTube, Web Dev Simplified, was talking about should you use Bootstrap. And the answer is not straightforward. But the point is, for you as somebody who's just starting in this industry, you need to know enough about it, because I'm going to tell you, you will see it, okay? In your life, if you continue on, which I hope you do, you're going to see a Bootstrap site. So learn it now. All right, so for the lecture for this week, you're going to have 2 videos that you're going to consume. And the first video is really just mostly concepts. Towards the end, he's going to actually have you create the index file. But for the most part on this first video, which I think, 14 minutes, you'll just take notes. So you're going to put that notes.md file inside of the Bootstrap directory. So let me show you that, okay? So over here in VS Code, I have my folders open, my repos so far. I've already created my Bootstrap folder. Remember, this is how you do it. Remember, this needs to go within your lectures directory. So in here, and he'll walk you through this, but I just want to also do this. So now that I've got my Bootstrap selected, I hit new file. Especially when you get started, the first file is always index.html. It should be lowercase, no spaces, because there wouldn't be a need for space anyway. But in general, lowercase, not space. So now that you're in here, and you're going to learn something in Todd's class called Emmet, and it is just a way that makes creating HTML much easier. I'm going to do explanation. I'm going to hit tab, and it just automatically does that for me. Okay, so then if you want, you can do this, which is just Bootstrap notes, lectures, maybe that, right? And so in here, after he gets to the place, and he'll actually show you how to create what's called CDN. Okay, and a CDN reference will go up in the head section, but he does a great job. Maximilian's awesome. That's who's actually doing these lectures. That's who I'm using for these lectures. So the thing you will do in this directory, though, is then also create your notes.md file. And this will be where you'll take your notes for this first lecture. Okay. And then when you're finished, you'll watch the second one, and that one will be about Bootstrap the Grid. Probably the most important thing you learn about Bootstrap is how the grid works, right? So, but what you will end up doing here is, once you have your notes and you have your index for both notes for here, and again, you'll do your index, you'll see a CDN reference. And I'm actually going to have you do this idea of a CD reference again for the next item, just to get the experience of doing it. So anyway, what you'll do is end up doing your GitHub workflow, right? Understanding that process. So, by the way, what I'm doing here, and I've talked about it a little bit, is I'm navigating the command line, but I'm doing it by hitting tab. So if I do lecture, just L and tab, it'll actually take me there. And I could have actually set back here. I could have done this, L, tab, and then hit B for Bootstrap, tab, and then that would have taken me right into the directory, get status, and it's like, oh yeah, let's see, I should have some, I'll just do a git add star, cool, git commit, and then I would say finishing, lecture for Tuesday, right? Cool. So now I have that in there, and I would do git push. And then what it'll do is it'll ask me to log in. Again, you can either use your email, your username, okay, and then you'll have to put in your password. So getting used to that flow, we've already had I think we have an assignment. We already had an assignment last week on this, but it's just good to refresh this. And just know, by the way, I'm going to do clear real quick, is that later on you learn, and you could even do this now, of ways to not have to log in to GitHub every time, but it doesn't hurt in this beginning to do that. Okay, so that's your lecture for this week. And then let's move on and look at, just for a second here, because I'm going to, like I said, give you another experience here. I want you to, on your GitHub pages, right? So on the other folder that you created, I want you to also use or recreate this idea of using the CDN to take what we've already created and update with the CDN reference for Bootstrap, and you can see how your file will change. And then I'm also going to have you do this, which is create the git ignore file. So let me just walk you through that process. Okay, so there's two things you have to do for this. Both are in, let's see, where do I have you add that into your GitHub? Yeah, so this git ignore could go in the root directory of your lectures and your GitHub IO. Now mine is pretty big because it shows what I had in there, and I ended up just creating an index file to show you. But this for you would be in your root of your GitHub IO directory. Again, I just have stuff in there, so I just created this. So for you, follow along in your root. I'm going to go ahead and do that same thing where I'm creating the index file, right? I'll do it this way. I'll show you how to do, just again, this is a repeat, but I'm going to go to Bootstrap Introduction 4.0, and this is the key, is we're on the 4.0 version. And actually there's a little copy right there, which is nice. I'm going to go to the head section of the index file. I'm going to paste that in, which is a really long URL, and we definitely could talk about what's all in here. But for today, we're just going to paste it in there. And then I'm just going to put a H1, right? All right. So I showed you this to show you, and by the way, again, we're working in your GitHub IO. And I want to show you how to view this file locally. Now, when you put this file out on the web, you can see it by navigating to your GitHub IO URL. But locally, you could also view this, right? So for just a second, I'm going to do this. Actually, no, I'll go ahead and show you this. So there's multiple ways, and you will learn, again, as you move forward with web development, different ways to view this locally. There's things called like live server. I also have this thing called the 200, which is a web server for Chrome. But for now, for you all, I'm going to just show you the most simple, straightforward way to do it. Is now that you have this, and by the way, the other thing I have turned on here is autosave, which is really handy because anytime I make changes to my file, it automatically saves. But I'm going to go to my system. Again, yours, if you're on Windows, you have File Explorer. If you're on Mac, what is it on Mac? Viewer, Finder. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and open up this directory. And what I can do is actually just double click on it. And what that will do is open it on my local system. Now yours is going to look a little different as far as the URL. And all you're doing here is checking out how this thing would work. So I can flip back over right here, right? And I could, because you guys, we've updated this file a couple of weeks ago. So yours is going to have a little more in it. Right? So now that I've added a little more content, again, my auto save is on. I come over here and I hit refresh. Now what I can see here, right click inspect, and you've had a little experience with inspect, but what you will see over in the styles is actually all the stuff that Bootstrap brings in for you. Like you didn't have to write any of this CSS. It automatically comes to you by using Bootstrap, which is the reason Bootstrap is fun because it's like you can do a lot in a little amount of time. All right, so I wanted to show you that as well. And I want you to create in your, and actually you can do this in both your private and your GitHub IO, but in general, I just want to show you the process of creating a really important file on your system that as you learn more about web development becomes more important, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and close these down just for a minute, right? So let's do this in the private, and you can, again, we're gonna do this in the root of that. And right now, the only thing setting there for me, I'll roll this up so you don't see all that, is a README file. So I'm gonna click on the private, and the key to this, and this is, let me show you this, is the name is kind of funky. So it begins with a dot, git ignore. Okay. So you go dot git, right? Ignore. And it's really, it's one of those files, and it's basically telling Git, hey, ignore these following things. And I just clicked off and now it's in there. And I've actually given you here, and this is just some settings for VS Code. I think most of you are using VS Code, so this should be easy, right? So you just can paste that right in. And this could also happen in your public. This could happen in your, and I think I've already done it here. Let's see if I have. Oh, I haven't. So we could do the same thing here in my GitHub, in my IO, right? So I could actually just copy that and do it again. So you get the ideas. I want you to have this git ignore for all three of your repos that you have. And then you will just go through. Now, in this case, I need to back up. And by the way, I can back up directories like this 2 at a time if I want to, right? So, and tab, private, and then I can do git status. Cool. Git add star, and then git commit. Now this time, and I'm doing a commit just for the git ignore, which is fine. You could include it in your other one, but there we go. Don't forget that, right? Cool. I think I got it. Right, okay. So then git push. All right, cool. So everything's up to date. So if I go look at the web, I will see that those files are up there. All right, so the last thing you need to do for this week is there's a really interesting topic, and most people have seen it but hadn't thought about it, called semantic versioning. Like every software that you use has a version, and that version actually tells you something that most people don't even realize. So I want you to watch this video and understand what semantic versioning is, and then find something in your life that you use, right? There's so much software that we all touch on a daily basis, from our Facebook, our phone versions, our OS, like my Linux version, my Chrome OS version. I mean, there's just so many. So I want you to find one, right? Right. And then describe its current version right? Semantically, now that you have some understanding of that. All right. So, and then this is the one where you reply, like, this is a new topic. So remember, current topics are just introducing you to some things in the industry that you may or may not have understood. And if you didn't, maybe now we gave you a new level of understanding about that. Okay. So the one thing I am going to say here is that on this week, I think you will still get an old video for this one. So just give you a little heads up here, right? This is also new content, and you'll use that same folder. So even like when you hear me talking about in that video, the old structure, you can just kind of matter of fact, let's just do that. We could actually do that together here. We go look at templates next week. So on this, let's go. I'm not going to watch the whole thing, obviously, but let's see where I talk about it. Oh yeah. So I'm talking about that. Oh, good. So most of what I talk about is actually the part of this, which is really an important and fun assignment, which is to learn how to do Git branches. So FYI, when you see that, just know that that's true. All right. Thanks. Have a great day.